Kherson will be most likely liberated this month, and after this, Ukraine confirmed its plans to deoccupy Crimea. And so Putin is getting desperate, so he acknowledged that he is ready for negotiations, but on certain conditions. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's go straight to the point and see some most recent footage from around Ukraine. And our first video comes to us from its capital, Kiev, where we can see Ukrainian air defense system in action. But unfortunately, some of missiles did reach their final destinations, which were energy infrastructure. And according to the mayor of Kiev, Vitaly Klitschko, approximately 80% of the city was left without water and a big part of it without electricity. As you might already know, pretty much the entire Ukraine right now is in energy saving mode. And right here, for example, is the schedule for power outages for the residents of Kiev. Then we go to Kharkov, and as you can see from this picture, this city has been shelled by Russians as well. Our next video comes to us from Berestova, which is located in Donetsk region, and as you can see right here, Ukrainians were able to shoot down the Russian helicopter. But Russians did respond, and as you can see right here, they also brought down Ukrainian helicopter in Konstantinovka. Alright, and now let's see some more exclusive footage from the south of Ukraine, and while I'm going there, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel if you never want to miss any of these daily updates. You can also follow me on Instagram and send me a message, and I will reply to you. And our first video comes to us from Zaporozhye, where we can see the consequences of Russian shelling. Then we go to Dnipro, and as you can see right here, the hydro plant has been under attack. Our next stop brings us to Kryvyi Rog, the birthplace of President Zelensky, where we can unfortunately see that Russian missiles did reach their final destinations. And going a little bit to the north, to Kremenchuk, we can see that another hydro plant has been under attack by Russians. Please bear with me, I only have 3 more videos and 1 picture to share before we can transition to next part of the video. And 2 of these videos will be pretty strange. And so this next picture comes to us from Cherkasy, where we can see the consequences of once again Russian shelling. Then we go a little bit to the south, to Mykolaiv, where we can see this first strange video. And as you can see right here, a Russian missile for some reason decided to make a U-turn mid-flight. And the next video is from Odessa, where local authorities discovered an abandoned Me-2 helicopter inside one of the containers in the seaport. The helicopter is reportedly functioning, that is why it will be sent to the Ukrainian armed forces. And then for the final footage, we have this video from Novodnistrovsk. And as you can see right here, yet another hydro plant has been targeted by Russians. According to the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, on October 31st alone, Russia launched 50 X-101 and X-55 missiles. And as you can see right here, Ukraine was able to reportedly intercept 44 of them. And it is estimated that Russia has spent anywhere between $400 and $600 million for these attacks. On this map, you can see the territories which were targeted by Russians, which are represented as these flame symbols. And those missiles which were intercepted by Ukrainians are represented by green circles. And this time, Russia was mainly targeting Ukrainian hydro plants. And according to this map, the ones which were either severely or partially damaged are the hydro plants located in Dnipro, Kremenchuk and Dnipro. And how would Russia justify these attacks? Well, according to Putin, this was the revenge for Ukrainians attempting to target the Russian flagship in the Black Sea, Admiral Makarov. This last Saturday, October 29th, 3 Russian ships from the Black Sea fleet were damaged as a result of the attack by the unmanned surface vessels, more commonly known as the water drones. And among these 3 damaged ships is Admiral Makarov, which is the new flagship of Russian fleet in the Black Sea, which replaced Moskva, currently serving as a submarine. In this video, for example, you can see this so-called water drone impacting one of these ships. And the first reaction of Russians was that it was just a regular routine military training, so they gave us this picture. And later, the Ministry of Defense of Russia released this video statement acknowledging that yes, 3 ships were damaged. But they said that these were not the military ships, these were the ships which were providing the security for this grain export deal. And so, this is how I imagine this video statement was being recorded. Earlier today, as a result of Ukrainian attack, 3 battleships which were responsible for launching missiles against the Oh, what am I saying? Let's record again. Just stop it. Earlier today, as a result of Ukrainian attack, 3 ships which were providing security for the grain deal were attacked by Ukrainians. But okay, because before you even know it, the very next day the same Ministry of Defense of Russia released this video which actually showed that Russians were launching missiles from these ships from the Black Sea. And by the way, I do have videos from these water drones in the exact moment of these recent attacks. And if you want to see the full 3-minute versions so you can realize for yourself that there's simply no denying the fact that these attacks happened, please consider checking my Patreon. The proceeds will be donated to Ukraine and you can find all the useful links down below. Alright, and now let me give you a very quick update about the situation on the east. According to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, Russian forces are not making any significant progress next to Bakhmut, Donetsk region or anywhere else along the front lines. And at the same time, Ukrainians are consolidating their gains and continuing their counteroffensive along Saldo road. If you remember from my previous episodes, according to the head of Luhansk region Sergei Haidai, this road is practically under Ukrainian control. And the reason why it is not yet reflected on this map, it is because we are still waiting for the official confirmation by the General Staff of Ukraine. But if we take a look at the changes in territorial control over the last several days, we can most certainly see that Ukrainians are advancing closer. And then we have this map which shows us the most significant fighting in the last 24 hours. And as you can see, the most active combat actions are happening next to Bakhmut, Avdiivka, Marinka and to the northeast of Vuhledar. And now let's talk about extremely important events from the south of Ukraine. First of all, according to the same report by the Institute for the Study of War, Russians continue to withdraw their artillery and other military units from Kherson. And the reason they do it is to allegedly reinforce their positions somewhere else. And this statement is confirmed by this satellite image which came to us from Chernobyevka airport. Because as you can see right here, there are only empty trenches which are left with no Russian military equipment inside. And allegedly, Russians relocated their artillery from Chernobyevka closer to Kakhovka area, so that they have much better chances of protecting Bereslav from approaching Ukrainians. What I personally see is that Russians prioritize defending this area of Kherson first of all, because it looks like that according to them, this is where the biggest force of Ukrainians is coming from, and in case they are successful, they might cross Dnipro river and approach Kherson from the south. And so Russians are simply trying to prevent this from happening since the beginning. And in order to do this, they had to take out some of its forces which are closer to Kherson, such as for example from above mentioned Chernobyevka, and move them closer to Kakhovka, which ultimately left Kherson city a little bit less protected. And in case this is true, this is a pretty big risk for Russians, because as soon as Ukraine breaches through Russian defenses in Nova Kakhovka and eliminates these forces, it will be even easier to recapture Kherson. We then even have this statement by Russian infiltrator in Kherson Vladimir Saldo, who is proposing to increase the evacuation zone by additional 15 kilometers. And according to him, two especially important territories subject to this extended evacuation are located in Kakhovka and Hola Pristan, right below Kherson city, which once again confirms the fact that Russians are afraid that they will be surrounded in Kherson from the south. According to the chief of defense intelligence of Ukraine, Kirill Budanov, Kherson will be deoccupied by the end of November. And as soon as this happens, Ukraine will continue its liberating course across the rest of the south. He even mentioned that sooner or later Ukraine will retake Crimea. But first of all, Ukraine will need to liberate the territories to the north of this peninsula and most likely in the future destroy this Crimean bridge, so that Russians will have absolutely no resupply logistics left coming inside this temporary occupied territory. And as a result of all this, my prediction stays the same. As soon as Kherson is liberated, the rest of the south will follow along pretty quick. You can access all the maps that I was drawing today for free in our Discord, the link will be down below. And so, what is the response of Russia to all these events and the most probable scenarios in the future? And so, according to this article, Putin is now ready for negotiations with the West, but on certain conditions. According to Sergei Lavrov, Russia is ready to talk about reducing tensions, but only if there are realistic proposals based on the equal approach. He then also added that Russia never ever declined peace talks. It was always this Ukraine who are following the directions of their Western sponsors. But the most recent events, and well, pretty much the events throughout the whole war, say completely the opposite. Russia says that they are always ready for these negotiations, but they will do everything possible for them not to happen. And Ukraine did respond to Sergei Lavrov, saying that the only condition for these negotiations to happen is the immediate end of war. And I mean, it makes sense, right? If you want to have peace talks, make sure to end the war and withdraw your troops. And on the other hand, we have Russia, which is shelling civilian objects, destroys energy infrastructure, gives out ultimatums and declares partial mobilization, and then they are wondering why no one wants to have a peace talk with them. And ultimately, the press secretary of Russia, Dmitry Peskov, said that if no one wants to talk with us, maybe Putin can talk with Joe Biden about some security guarantees for Russia. This will be mainly focused on one of the first objectives of Russia in this war, to prevent the NATO from expanding. So it's like, you know, the reason we invaded Ukraine, it is because we felt threatened. And in order for us to stop being afraid, you should stop supporting Ukraine. And then we might consider withdrawing troops from Ukraine. And while it might not make much sense, these are these special considerations in order for Putin to have his peace negotiations. If you want to support my work, please consider becoming my channel member. All the other useful links can be found to my right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи, and see you tomorrow.